pointed out, these missiles and drones, etc., uh, in the final analysis, they all originate from Iran.
Yes,
Or the forces firing these weapons at us are supported by, backed by, funded by Iran.
equipped by Iran.
Equipped
Yes,
by Iran, directed by Iran. They don't fire a single drone without express permission and instruction from Iran.
correct.
So this begs the question. Everything that I hear and see indicates that the United States is avoiding any kind of confrontation with Iran. Now, why would that be? How can that be uh, how can that be squared with American interests?
Well, there are two facts that let's just look at right now. It was reported that after the Iranian president died in this helicopter accident, that this concerned the State Department because apparently they were engaged in very detailed behind the scenes negotiations with the Iranians to cool things off in the Middle East. The second thing was, as it was reported, was that the United States sent a message to the members of a committee associated with the International Atomic Energy Committee, saying, don't criticize the Iranian government in this upcoming meeting that we're going to have, charging the Iranians with violating this understanding not to enrich the uranium to weapons grade levels, which they've done.
That was the famous Obama
Right.
treaty
Right.
or pact or agreement.
Yeah. Well, now they've just blatantly violated it, and they're not making any bones about it or excuses for it. But the Biden administration had to warn. It actually came in the form of a warning, not to make things any worse by criticizing them or chas v'shalom, condemning them for having broken a promise not to enrich uranium to weapons grade levels. So why the Americans are doing this, honestly, for someone like me, it's very difficult to comprehend or ascertain the logic behind what they're doing. Why is it, for example, that they believe that by including Iran as part of a solution to the violence in the Middle East, rather than a cause of it, that they're somehow doing something right? Doesn't make any sense. Why is it, for example, that they are allowing known Iranian spies to actually operate in the Pentagon, in the intelligence community, in the National Security Council, in the White House? Why are they allowing this? Well, we just found out. And again, it wasn't broadcast enough that during that run-up to the JICPOA, as that's called, the treaty with Iran, or the agreement with the Iranians to the Iran deal, so to speak, that the White House and the Justice Department prevented the FBI from arresting known Iranian-linked terrorists from being arrested. Let them go. Don't arrest them. We don't want to jeopardize the negotiations right now. And the information that's been revealed is that the FBI, the various field offices, were apoplectic. These are bad people. They're here for nefarious purposes. Many people can die because of what they might do, and we have to arrest them. And they were forbidden from doing so by the Obama administration. Okay, so you have to try to wrap your head around this, and you've already put your finger on it as far as the Shikma Bresslers and the others here. They have a warped perspective on reality. They have a alternative reality, if you will, that they have accepted. They don't know how to do critical thinking. They don't know how to read history except through a very warped prison of a woke, progressive ideology, victimhood, if you will.
Sorry, I'm sorry to correct you, but instead of progressive, I suggest regressive.
Regressive, that's fine. That's even better, regressive. And so when you have this intellectual deficiency, you can actually, it's like Orwellian. Up is down, good is bad. It's kind of newspeak, Orwellian newspeak, where they see Iran as part of a solution and not the problem for violence in the Middle East and around the world, for that matter.
It should be noted that Iran has become closer to both China and Russia over the last several years. Iran is supplying significant amounts of armaments to Russia. So by taking out Iran, the US would also be weakening its major rivals, China and Russia.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Israel took out Iran, which we're capable of doing now. But let's say we did that. What would the impact, the geopolitical impact, be on that? First of all, the Russians would be caught flat-footed. The Ukrainians would get a breather. The Chinese would suffer a major loss of fuel, gas, and oil. Their position in the Gulf, in particular, would be, well, undermined, to put it mildly. The Emiratis, the Bahrainis would breathe a sigh of relief, and the Saudis would probably come to the table with us to normalize relations. The fake Palestinians issue notwithstanding, if we took them out. So why wouldn't the Americans allow their foot soldiers, their mercenaries, if you will, in the Middle East to do so?
It sounds like a win-win situation.
The good guys win. Well, the definition, your definition, my definition of good guys is not the same as the Biden administration. It just isn't. And it gets back to that notion of victimhood and the weak and the powerful being bad and the weak being good. And the Americans are still, the Biden Americans are still of a mind that we are guilty of original sin, if you will, with Iran, and that we owe them an apology. And in fact, Obama did almost very, very quickly after he became the president. He issued a formal apology for Mossad, for deposing this Iranian left-wing nationalist by the name of Mossadegh back in the 50s, although the British had more to do with it than we did. And I said to myself, what in the world is he doing? He's validating this notion of original sin that the Iranians, that Khomeini in particular, has been just pounding into the heads of the Iranian people. Never got a valid answer out of it. Never got a valid answer out of, asking people, what are they thinking? Why are they doing this? What logic does it make? I think you have to get into abnormal psychology to really understand what's motivating a lot of these guys in the Obama administration, the Biden administration, for their belief that Iran is part of the solution and not the problem in the Middle East. It's a conceptual problem. It's a misconception, if you will. It's a misconception of what role Iran is actually playing. Look, at one point, even under the George Bush administration, the generals in Iraq, Petraeus in particular, was telling him, President Bush, that the overwhelming majority of American casualties in Iraq were being caused by Iranian-manufactured IEDs that were being placed on the side of the road, and that were just ripping through armored vehicles, even tanks. And a proposal was made by the American military to strike the factory in Iran that was producing these IEDs, improvised explosive devices. and it was turned down. Even under the George Bush administration, a Republican, a neocon administration, they felt that it would be too destabilizing to attack one facility isolated from any civilian area.
I'm sorry for laughing, but that is so ludicrous. They didn't think it was destabilizing to invade Iraq and essentially dismantle the country, which simply opened it up for Iranian domination. As we all see, there is no country of Iraq today.
No.
It's just an extension in every sense of the word, both physical, geographical, and ideological extension of Iran, and military, as we see. That was not a destabilizing move on their part.
No, they didn't see that.
But to attack the Iranians, that would be destabilizing.
To attack one manufacturing facility in Iran that was away from an urban area, so it could be targeted cleanly, according to humanitarian rules, that was producing equipment, material that was just slaughtering American troops, slaughtering them. No, that would be destabilizing.
There was clearly something so profoundly perverse in the thinking of these people that makes it almost impossible for us to truly come to grips with what is going on inside their minds.
There comes a point in time where you have to look at the degree of incompetence, criminal incompetence, and just raise your hands and say it just doesn't make any sense. Especially the fact that a lot of people, everybody knew about this story that I just told you about, the refusal of the George Bush government administration to attack a facility, an isolated facility that was responsible for the escalating number of horrible wounds and deaths, outright deaths of American servicemen and women. You almost want to believe this isn't true. You almost want to believe that, but it was true, and it was known. I read about it in leading papers and magazines.
I can suggest one possible explanation, and that is as the Torah describes with regards to Paro, the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, in 3,400 odd plus years ago, whose heart was hardened by Hashem.
Correct.
In order to bring about a certain chain of events, as the Torah describes. Here too, it seems to me that Hashem has plans for the world, which we cannot know precisely, but it's difficult to imagine that the world we once knew some decades ago will return in the foreseeable future.
I can't see it.
The world is truly coming apart at the seams, and it seems that the humankind is in for all kinds of major upheavals and rearrangements of power and influence and economic domination, military domination. Various countries, it seems to me, will collapse or be overrun from within by the Islamo-Nazi immigrants and what have you.
Well, I saw that in Europe.
Yeah, you were there. You can tell us in a moment about that some more. So Hashem must have some plans for the world, and this necessitates literally blinding these people to simple, obvious reality and facts, and thus they behave in an irrational manner. What else could it be?